Now, I appreciate you checking out this video. Before I continue, I want you to go to theultimatejetguide.com, where I've put together a full guide for jet buyers like yourself. Let me ask you this question first. Do you prefer that someone comes to you and says, hey, I want to buy a jet. What can you approve me for? Or do you prefer if they come to you with a jet already selected? Because usually when someone calls me and I ask them, is this a cash or finance deal? One of the first things to say is, if it's a finance deal, have you talked to your bank already? So is this a chicken or the egg kind of a thing? Or is there a best practice for how do you approach a bank and say, I want to buy a private jet?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think pre-qualifications are a good thing. It helps people, have an idea of where they want to go. If they are an experienced, owner, they may already have an idea or have the wherewithal to know, their price point and what they can afford. Mm-hmm. They just need to go through the due diligence with the lender and so on and so forth. So I think everybody's situation is going to be a little bit different. I think with light inventory, pre-approvals tend to be a little bit more of a go-to because it helps people understand what they can afford and really where they want to go. I don't have a preference. The process is remotely similar. You're collecting a lot of the same data. And when the collateral changes, as long as it's not too far down the road that, and sometimes it is, sometimes they've already done an appraisal, sometimes they've already gone through inspections, so on and so forth. And then they find something, isn't what they expected or what they wanted. So then they change and move to a different aircraft, and the change of collateral is pretty simple. It's kind of, but the process is pretty straightforward. The requirements for it, typically you're looking at least 2 years worth of returns, tax returns, business returns, and personal returns.
Okay.
Most lenders that are out there outside of a certain, I wouldn't say one-off, but very few and far between. Most lenders do require an individual guarantor. So you're going to have personal and business. Personal financial statement, most recent interim financial statements from the business, profit and loss statement, balance sheet. If they're flying the aircraft, sometimes it's helpful to understand their experience,
Sure.
what their certifications are, and how long they've been flying, whether or not they have aircraft ownership experience. If they're W-2, it's helpful to have W-2, maybe most recent pay stub. Bank and brokerage statements. Liquidity is a big piece, especially as you move into the larger transactions. They want to know, what their cash reserves look like should something come up.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually not about whether or not they can get out from underneath the aircraft. It's, if it takes a couple months to sell the aircraft, how much do they have in pocket to cover, right? If some sort of, no one goes into buying an aircraft or getting a loan, with thinking, hey, something's going to happen over the next 2 years or whatever, unfortunately. So, they do look at liquid reserves, which is important. On more commercial fuel aircraft, where it may be in a Part 135 or, the OPCO is directly in the ownership structure, they may ask for 3 years. So it is helpful to have 3 years at the ready, both of business returns and year-end financial statements. So, if it is more of a commercial underwrite and they're doing a debt, global debt service coverage or debt service coverage on the business specifically, they're going to want to see not just the returns, but they're going to want to see the year-end financial statements too. So,
okay.
And then, for bigger businesses and bigger transactions, some lenders may go to the extent of requiring audited financials, but that's, I don't
10
see
million,
that.
20 million.
Yeah, I don't see that too much. And sometimes when you get into those larger transactions, individuals or businesses may not want to provide anything. So then you may fall to an asset-based lender, and they have different options. They have different paths to get you to the finish line. Which may not require some of the information that I stated earlier. It's going to be, and again, those are situational and typically, I don't know, we'll say 10 million plus transactions.